My parents insisted I lend my new dress, purchased for a company welcoming event, to my sister, who habitually ruins my possessions. Am I in the wrong for finally expressing the truth? I, 22F, am in dire need of advice regarding a situation with my family, specifically my sister, Susan, 24F. I've been a passive observer for a long time, but recent events have pushed me to finally recount my experiences. Please be patient, as this might be lengthy. I'm literally trembling as I write this, partly from anger and partly from fear of the repercussions if they discover I'm seeking assistance. I recently completed my university education and secured my ideal position at a leading technology firm. Everything was progressing smoothly. I exerted significant effort in college, achieving a 3.9 GPA with a partial scholarship and obtaining this role after multiple rounds of rigorous interviews. The company is renowned for its positive work atmosphere and abundant opportunities for career progression. After years of feeling apprehensive at home, I was genuinely delighted to commence my professional career. The introductory reception for new personnel is scheduled for tomorrow evening. It's a formal gathering where new hires can interact with senior executives and team supervisors. Several distinguished guests will be in attendance, and it's acknowledged as a crucial networking opportunity that can influence one's future trajectory within the company. I held part-time employment for several months and accumulated sufficient funds to purchase suitable clothing. It's not extravagant, but rather professional and elegant. It cost me $400, representing many hours of tutoring and weekend work at a local coffee shop. My parents, both 45, didn't offer any financial assistance, which was unsurprising considering their history of favoring my sister. My sister, Susan, has always been the favored child. She's currently unemployed after failing to graduate from college on 2 separate occasions. She dedicates most of her time to socializing and engaging on social media platforms, while our parents cover her expenditures without hesitation. They've spent thousands on her retail therapy, high-end gadgets, and even a vehicle, which she totaled within 3 months. Meanwhile, since my high school years, I've had to undertake part-time jobs to finance essential needs like school materials and attire. The disparity in treatment originated early. When I was 5, my aunt gifted me a small art kit for Christmas. Susan exhibited a severe outburst, prompting my parents to confiscate it and present it to her, despite her having already received other costly presents. They informed me that I needed to learn the importance of sharing and that Susan was more emotionally vulnerable. This established the pattern for our entire upbringing. Growing up, Susan would consistently throw tantrums if I received anything enjoyable. At 12, I was victorious in a science competition at school. Instead of a celebration, Susan experienced an emotional breakdown because she felt neglected. My parents' resolution? They confiscated my award and certificate to prevent upsetting Susan. Susan couldn't tolerate seeing me on stage, so they compelled me to forgo the award ceremony. This behavior persisted throughout my life. Any achievement or source of happiness for me was perceived as a threat to Susan's emotional state. As we matured, the circumstances deteriorated. Susan had a proclivity for taking my possessions without consent. Clothing, literature, electronics, nothing was exempt. If I voiced objections, my parents would reprimand me for being self-centered and inconsiderate of my sister's feelings. They would utter statements like, "Susan is fragile and needs extra support. You're more resilient, so you need to be accommodating." When I obtained my first smartphone at 16, which I financed with my tutoring earnings, Susan insisted on having it because hers was outdated, despite it being only 6 months old. My parents coerced me into exchanging phones with her. There were countless similar incidents. Susan would resort to physical aggression if she didn't get her way. She once shoved me down the stairs when I declined to let her utilize my laptop for a social media live stream. I sustained a sprained ankle, but my parents refused to take me to the hospital. Instead, they instructed me to remain in my room and avoid antagonizing Susan. On another occasion, My mother slapped me across the face during a family get-together because I was receiving more compliments on my scholastic accomplishments. My parents subsequently reprimanded me for showing off and upsetting Susan. The emotional abuse was far more detrimental than the physical. Susan would regularly tell me that I was unwanted and that our parents only had me to provide her with a sibling. She ridiculed my physical appearance, disseminated false information about me at school, and even sabotaged my friendships. When I was 15, I had my first boyfriend. Susan fabricated claims that I was being unfaithful to him. I wasn't, and even presented him with altered screenshots of fabricated conversations. He terminated our relationship, and when I confronted Susan, she merely laughed. Our parents? They stated I shouldn't have initiated a romantic relationship because it made Susan feel isolated. Throughout all of this, I learned to maintain a low profile and concentrate on my studies. My aspiration for financial autonomy sustained me during the most challenging periods. I even planned to relocate as soon as I began earning an income, hoping to finally escape this toxic environment. I immersed myself in academic pursuits and extracurricular activities, doing everything possible to avoid being at home. During college, I believed circumstances would improve since I resided in the dormitories. However, Susan would frequently arrive unannounced, demanding money or clothing, and throwing fits if I declined. My parents would contact me, chastising me for neglecting my sister, despite her being the designated older sibling. They even attempted to pressure me into withdrawing from university after Susan's second failure in her courses, asserting it was unjust for me to complete my education while she was unable. However, yesterday, the situation reached a climax. Susan and our parents barged into my room an hour before I was scheduled to try on my dress for final adjustments. She insisted I lend her the dress for an upcoming job interview. When I refused, she erupted, accusing me of arrogance for securing a job before her, of intentionally trying to make her look inadequate, and of being a perpetually self-centered, attention-seeking individual. Our parents, predictably, sided with her. "Your sister has a greater need for this than you do," Mom stated, employing the guilt-inducing tone I've grown to detest. "She has interviews lined up, and this attire would significantly boost her self-assurance. You can select something else to wear to the celebration. Why do you constantly have to be so challenging?" I attempted to convey the significance of this event to my career, how I had saved for months to purchase the outfit, and how this was my prime opportunity to create a favorable initial impression at my new workplace. But Dad interrupted me, his face reddened with anger. "Stop being so obstinate," he snapped. "You're aware of how trying this period has been for Susan. Why do you invariably have to make everything revolve around yourself? Can't you consider your sister's emotions for once?" The most egregious aspect? Susan had previously returned her own exquisite dress, purchased by our parents for $2,000, and utilized the funds to acquire cosmetics and a new phone case. She didn't even have any genuine interviews scheduled. She simply desired my dress because it belonged to me. Subsequently, I overheard her conversing on the phone with a friend, joking about how she intended to address her sister's attitude problems. What differentiates this situation from previous ones is that my grandmother, 71F, anticipates receiving photographs from the welcome celebration. She's always been more rational than my parents, but residing in a different state means she's less acquainted with our family's intricate dynamics. She specifically requested that I send her images of my attire, expressing her pride in my securing such a prestigious position directly after graduation. She even contemplated framing the photograph for her living room. I'm currently confined to my room, attempting to determine a course of action. My hands are trembling as I type this. My sister is still outside, creating a disturbance, yelling that I'm ruining her life and that she'll make me regret being born. I can hear her pounding on my door and threatening to break it down. My parents are sending me text messages, instructing me to cease being selfish and to prioritize family harmony. They're threatening to ground me, yes, at 22, and confiscate my phone if I don't comply. Should I simply acquiesce again to preserve tranquility? I'm cognizant that if I don't comply, they might physically force me to surrender the dress, or Susan might destroy it out of spite, as she has done with my belongings in the past. But I'm so weary of being the family's designated victim. This welcoming celebration held immense importance for me. It's my initial step toward independence, a chance to begin establishing a life free from their detrimental influence. I can't help but worry if divulging the truth about the situation to my grandmother will make any difference. She's always been kind to me, but my parents have instilled in me the belief that contacting relatives would bring disgrace upon the family and that no one would believe me anyway. They've spent years convincing me that their treatment is normal and that I'm culpable for not being more adaptable. I'm bewildered and uncertain about how to proceed. Any guidance would be immensely appreciated. Am I being unreasonable in wanting to retain my own outfit, which I purchased with my own earnings? How do I navigate this scenario without provoking further conflict, but also without relinquishing something that holds genuine significance for me? I feel on the verge of a panic attack simply contemplating confronting them. The welcoming celebration is tomorrow evening, so I must make a decision promptly. I've labored diligently to reach this point, and it's disheartening that my accomplishment is being overshadowed by my sister's demands and my parents' enabling behavior. The notion of attending an inappropriate attire and potentially damaging my professional reputation is distressing, but so is the prospect of another violent confrontation with Susan. Thank you for reading this far. I've never disclosed the full extent of what transpires within our family to anyone, so documenting it all feels both terrifying and liberating. I keep questioning myself, wondering if I'm overreacting or if I'm delusional for believing this isn't typical behavior. At this moment, any advice or support would be deeply valued. Update 1. First and foremost, I'd like to express my gratitude to everyone who offered encouraging comments on my initial post. A significant amount has occurred in the past 24 hours, and everything has transformed. Yesterday, after I posted, my grandmother contacted me to inquire about the welcome celebration and photographs. When I began offering excuses, she discerned that something was amiss. She insisted on taking me out for lunch today, ostensibly needing assistance with grocery shopping. My parents couldn't decline her invitation without arousing suspicion. At a secluded cafe, away from home, my grandmother held my hands and softly said, "Now, tell me everything." Her gentle tone shattered all my defenses. For the first time, I revealed the complete truth about our family dynamics. I recounted how Susan sabotaged my school projects, tore up my college preparatory books, and ruined my prom dress with bleach. I disclosed years of secrets that I had concealed out of fear and shame. My grandmother listened attentively, without interruption, but I could observe her hands shaking with fury. When I finished, she confessed that she and other family members had harbored suspicions for years, but were unable to substantiate them, as my parents consistently portrayed an image of a flawless family at social events. Right there at the dining establishment, Mother initiated calls to various relatives, including my aunts, uncles, and family friends. Concurrently, my phone began buzzing incessantly with messages from my family. My mother dispatched more distress texts. "How could you disseminate falsehoods about our family after all we provided for you? You're causing your sister distress again." Susan's messages commenced with emotional manipulation. "I'm shocked you'd betray me like this. You're aware of my fragility." They rapidly escalated to intimidation. "You must inform Grandma you fabricated the story, or you'll face consequences. Recall your prom dress incident? This will be more severe." Dad interjected, "Your mother is experiencing a crisis due to your actions. Return home immediately and rectify the situation you've created." However, this time, their threats impacted me differently. Every text validated what I had disclosed to my grandmother. While they were issuing these threats, my grandma displayed numerous supportive texts from relatives who were at last perceiving the reality. The family's response has been remarkably positive. My aunt expressed regret for accepting Susan's misrepresentations about my supposed cruelty towards her. My uncle vowed to assist me in securing accommodation near my job. Another aunt suggested counseling and even volunteered to fund the sessions. My grandmother declared unequivocally that she would no longer permit them to intimidate me. She engaged her legal counsel and acquired a new ensemble for me for the welcoming event, which is now securely kept at my aunt's residence. Even family acquaintances have started recounting their own observations of Susan's problematic conduct at gatherings, including a child psychologist who had noticed concerning signs years ago. I am composing this from my aunt's home. My parents continue to send me texts threatening financial disownment, which is inconsequential as I am self-sufficient, and disseminating to everyone what an ungrateful daughter I am. Susan's most recent threat involves sabotaging my employment, but it no longer instills fear in me. For the first time, I am not confronting their aggression in isolation. Tomorrow, I will attend the welcome reception in my new attire, with my aunt providing transportation for security. My grandma directed me to document everything henceforth, including Susan's threats. I am grateful to the platform for granting me the perspective that behavior I had come to see as ordinary are not common whatsoever. I will provide a subsequent update when feasible. Update 2. I never foresaw such a rapid intensification of events subsequent to my previous update. I'm penning this from my grandmother's residence, nursing a fractured nose and experiencing a sense of disorientation regarding the recent occurrences. The day after my welcome celebration, my grandmother presented me with a new MacBook for my professional endeavors. She had it delivered to my aunt's house beforehand, cognizant of Susan's history of interfering with my possessions. Upon returning to my parents' house to retrieve some attire, I anticipated that my parents and Susan would be absent. I was incorrect. Susan was awaiting me in my bedroom. She had discovered the laptop through a social media post by my cousin, who congratulated me on my new position and alluded to the present. What transpired subsequently remains surreal. "So, you're accepting inducements from Grandma now?" Susan inquired, seated on my bed, engrossed in her phone, her tone unusually subdued. "Do you believe you can alienate the entire family from us?" I endeavored to swiftly gather some clothes and depart, but she obstructed the doorway. "Do you recall our childhood, when Mom consistently emphasized the importance of sharing?" She smiled, but her gaze remained frigid. "Grandma also requires a lesson in that principle. Relinquish the laptop." When I refused, explaining its necessity for my new job, she seized my hair and forcefully propelled my face into the doorframe. I perceived a snapping sound and detected the warm flow of blood from my nose. The physical pain was intense, but the greater anguish stemmed from my parents' response upon hearing the commotion. They ascended the stairs, but instead of offering aid, Mom berated me for antagonizing Susan. Dad merely observed, remarking that I should have exercised better judgment than to parade my new acquisition before my sister. Fortunately, my aunt had elected to remain outside in her vehicle. Hearing the uproar, she intervened and found me injured. The ensuing events unfolded like a cinematic sequence. My aunt contacted both law enforcement and my grandmother. Within 60 minutes, my grandma arrived, accompanied by 2 additional aunts and an uncle. The officers collected statements and photographic evidence of my injuries. Susan's narrative fluctuated repeatedly, initially claiming it was accidental, then alleging I had initiated the aggression, and ultimately collapsing emotionally, exclaiming that I merited it for usurping her family. The most startling development was not the police involvement, but the communal reaction. While I was receiving medical attention for my nose at the hospital, news disseminated throughout our extended family and social circles. My parents' meticulously crafted image of the quintessential family disintegrated entirely. Their country club membership was discreetly revoked. Mom's social group excluded her from their regular gatherings. Dad's golfing companions were suddenly unavailable. Susan's few remaining friends began sharing accounts of her aggressive episodes that they had observed throughout the years. My parents experienced profound social ostracism. They had dedicated years to cultivating their persona as exemplary parents with two daughters, the sensitive, artistic Susan and the challenging one, me. Everyone is now privy to the truth, and they are incapable of coping. They've been incessantly contacting relatives, striving to mitigate the damage. Their latest assertion is that I'm undergoing a psychological episode and concocting narratives about Susan, but it is no longer credible. Particularly following the law enforcement report, Susan's reaction to the societal repercussions has been deeply unsettling. She created multiple fictitious online profiles to torment me and spread false information regarding our family dynamic. She even ventured to my workplace, endeavoring to persuade my new colleagues that I am psychologically compromised. Fortunately, my supervisor was already informed of the situation by my uncle, who is employed in personnel management, and arranged for security personnel to escort her off the premises. My grandmother's legal representative aided me in securing a protective order against Susan. The evidence was irrefutable: a prolonged history of documented incidents, corroborating statements from relatives and acquaintances, and now photographic evidence of my physical harm from the police. I am presently residing at my grandmother's home, and the contrast with my former life is striking. No one here instructs me to refrain from antagonizing my sister. Nobody demands I surrender my belongings to maintain tranquility. I can leave my portable computer on my desk without apprehension about its potential theft. My extended family's unwavering backing continues to amaze me. Cousins, with whom I've had limited contact in recent years, have connected to express their observations concerning Susan's actions at family functions. My aunt's associate, a mental health professional, facilitated my understanding that my experiences constituted ongoing mistreatment, facilitated by my parents. Meanwhile, my parents' social network is contracting. Their neighbors no longer engage in casual conversation. Mom's online posts about seeking divine intervention for her distressed daughters are met with either complete silence or pointed disapproval. Dad's professional associates have begun to maintain a distance, questioning his soundness of judgment upon learning of his role in managing the family crisis. Susan's employment opportunities, which were already limited, have become practically non-existent. In our community, information disseminates rapidly, and her aggressive outburst is now common knowledge. She attributes the ruination of her life to me, but an increasing number of individuals recognize her threats for their true nature. I am still processing the entirety of these events. My nasal injury will mend, but observing the dismantling of my parents' meticulously crafted facade has been simultaneously gratifying and emotionally painful. They are confronting the inevitable outcomes of their choices, and no degree of deception will offer reprieve this time. I will furnish another update as more information becomes available. I express my gratitude to everyone for your words of encouragement. They fortified my resolve when Susan demanded the laptop, despite the unpleasant ramifications. Occasionally, circumstances must deteriorate before they can ameliorate. Update number 3. I appreciate your backing on my preceding updates. It's been a tumultuous period, and I wish to emphasize some significant occurrences. My recuperation is advancing favorably. The nasal inflammation has diminished, though the contusion appears more pronounced. The physician anticipates no lasting damage, which is comforting considering my upcoming professional presentations. Residing at my grandmother's residence has become a lasting arrangement, and the disparity with my prior living situation is profound. This morning, I inadvertently knocked over a beverage container and instinctively recoiled, anticipating reprimands and disciplinary measures. Instead, I encountered my grandmother's courteous solicitude and assistance in rectifying the spill. The community's reaction has been extraordinary. Mom's online social platform presence crumbled when a plea for divine support regarding her troubled daughters produced unintended consequences. Susan's former pupils inundated the commentary section with their personal narratives of her intimidation and aggression. Dad's enterprise has sustained a substantial setback. Several enduring clients have terminated their association, and his business associates orchestrated an urgent meeting to scrutinize his standing after discovering his involvement in enabling Susan's behavior. They are particularly apprehensive about his capacity for sound judgment in positions of authority. Susan's behavior has spiraled downward since the issuance of the restraining order. She established additional counterfeit accounts to harass me and my advocates, but inadvertently posted from her primary account, supplying supplementary evidence for the legal proceedings. My aunt disclosed a startling revelation. My parents had consistently refused to permit Susan to receive mental health intervention during her youth. They prioritized the preservation of their pristine family image over addressing the underlying issues. My parents' endeavors to reassert dominance yielded catastrophic results. Their planned family dinner, intended to resolve misunderstandings, was attended by only 2 remote relatives. Mom's closest confidant publicly severed their online connection after reviewing the law enforcement report and accompanying photographs. Dad was requested to relinquish his ecclesiastic leadership role, and Mom's horticultural association opted to proceed without her participation. The most validating instance transpired when my secondary school guidance counselor contacted me, expressing remorse for not intervening more decisively when she noticed indications of mistreatment years ago. My parents had convinced her that my introverted demeanor was typical adolescent defiance, and that Susan's aggression was merely artistic temperament. My place of employment has been exceptionally supportive in the aftermath of Susan's attempt to instigate discord. My manager implemented enhanced security protocols, and my colleagues have demonstrated empathy regarding my plight. My uncle disseminated a public statement yesterday, chronicling years of unsettling conduct he had observed. His message gained widespread attention within our locality, precipitating additional social consequences. My parents' standing in the community is in ruins. Mom was removed from the Homeowners Association governing body, and they are unable to engage in routine shopping without being subjected to hushed conversations and stares. Susan's portrayal of herself as a victim is faltering. She experienced an emotional breakdown at our aunt's place of worship when someone mentioned my name, substantiating the widely circulated accounts of her behavior. I'm continuing to adjust to living without persistent apprehension. My grandmother facilitated my participation in therapeutic counseling, which has allowed me to recognize the abnormality of my previous domestic environment. Our legal counsel's retort to my parents' most recent communication, a cease and desist letter concerning alleged defamation, incorporated law enforcement photographic evidence, and corroborating witness declarations. The assistance rendered by this online community has been invaluable. You enlighten me to the fact that my conviction regarding the atypical nature of my circumstances was not unfounded. I intend to disseminate a concluding update once all matters have stabilized, but presently my focus is on convalescence and embarking on a new phase of life. It is remarkable how much vitality one possesses when not perpetually navigating a precarious situation. Update number 4. A period of 6 months has elapsed since my preceding communication, and I assess that the time has arrived to formally conclude this particular segment of my existence. I extend my gratitude to all who have followed my narrative and offered their encouragement. I am currently thriving in my chosen profession, having recently attained my inaugural promotion for successfully spearheading a significant initiative. My team supervisor commended my meticulousness and composed demeanor when confronting crises, aptitudes I refined while negotiating my family's tumultuous dynamics for an extended duration. My personal circumstances have undergone a complete metamorphosis. I have relocated to a residence of my own, yet I maintain daily contact with my grandmother. On the inaugural evening in my new dwelling, I comprehended that I could arrange my belongings freely, without trepidation of them being pilfered or vandalized. Seemingly mundane aspects, such as possessing personal space and exercising autonomous decision-making, feel like invaluable privileges. Susan was lately diagnosed with several psychological conditions after being mandated to participate in an assessment as a component of an anger management curriculum. She is presently undergoing treatment at a specialized facility, not voluntarily, but as a stipulation of her probationary terms following another episode of aggression, which did not directly impact me. My parents have encountered substantial repercussions. Dad's corporation urged him to accept early retirement after prominent clients voiced apprehensions regarding his decision-making capacity. Mom has been subjected to social marginalization within their residential community. Their endeavors to affiliate with a new religious community were stymied when congregants of their former church divulged their history. They are in the process of liquidating their residence and relocating to a different state in pursuit of a renewed beginning, but their notoriety has preceded them in various locales they have considered. The persistent ostracism and surreptitious commentary proved intolerable for them. The most unforeseen development has been the cascading impact within our extended familial network. My account served as an impetus for two cousins to disclose their own encounters with familial mistreatment. It is as though the shattering of the imposed silence has empowered others to finally acknowledge their own ordeals. My professional environment has evolved into a sanctuary. I recently established a peer support network for incoming personnel, and my supervisor lauded my distinctive insights into fostering collaborative environments. The paradoxical nature of my past adversities transforming into a source of professional efficacy is not lost on me. My parents initiated one further attempt at rapprochement last month, dispatching an eloquently composed communication via their newly appointed legal counsel, advocating for family therapeutic intervention. My grandmother's attorney responded succinctly, stating that all future correspondence must be channeled through appropriate legal avenues, and that I harbor no inclination toward reconciliation. The most gratifying transformation has been in my rapport with my extended relatives. Sabbath dinners at my grandmother's abode have become a cherished tradition, replete with genuine mirth and camaraderie. My aunts and uncles recount anecdotes from my formative years that my parents had either distorted or suppressed, affording me the opportunity to reclaim aspects of my personal history. I have commenced a mentorship role at a local youth outreach center, engaging with adolescents from precarious domestic backgrounds. One young woman recently informed me that my narrative motivated her to disclose her own sister's abusive behavior. My grandmother has been my most steadfast advocate, exemplifying authentic familial affection, unconditional, yet characterized by judicious boundaries. The protective order against Susan is now indefinite, and she is legally barred from approaching my place of work or residence. The communal reaction has served as a poignant illustration of societal accountability. My parents and Susan evaded formal legal sanctions, apart from the restraining order, yet the ensuing social alienation and diminution of status proved more efficacious than any judicial decree. I am at long last forging the existence I have perpetually yearned for but deemed unattainable. I possess a flourishing career, a robust social network, and, most crucially, inner tranquility. I no longer exhibit a startled response to abrupt auditory stimuli or offer unsolicited apologies for my mere presence. This constitutes my final update. To anyone confronting analogous circumstances, it is never belated to articulate your experiences and reclaim your autonomy. On occasion, the most formidable obstacle is cultivating the self-belief that you merit an improved existence. Thank you for accompanying me on the end of the story. If you aren't following, hit that subscribe button to get more true stories.